Hi, my name is Morgan and I am a neuroscience researcher, as well as today I am a poorly drawn cat. Welcome to the spooky season here on my channel. This whole month of October we're going to be going over spooky topics in neuroscience. So if you didn't catch last week's video, I did a review of scary movies. I'll link it in a card up here somewhere. Just seeing how accurate their brain scenes are. We talked about Hannibal and Get Out. Today we're going to be talking about something a little less scientific, or so it seems. Ghosts. So I personally do not believe in ghosts. I don't really see any reason to or any evidence, but there have been like ridiculous amount of ghost sightings. Like nearly everyone that you talk to thinks that they've seen a ghost if they believe. So why do we think that we see ghosts, or why do we see ghosts? So first we're going to start with a little history lesson. In 1902, a man named William James, who's considered to be sort of the father of American psychology, stated that all ghost sightings or religious experiences are due to a mental disorder. Now, I think that stigmatizes mental illness a little bit too much, and also I don't believe that's totally true, because you can talk to people who don't have mental illnesses who also believe in ghosts. But this is what William James said. He said that all ghost sightings and spiritual experiences were due to delusional insanity. And then, of course, everyone sort of jumped to blame schizophrenia. I don't believe he ever specifically said schizophrenia, but if you think of disorders that make you see things, schizophrenia is the one that you're going to think of. But again, I don't fully support this. This is history, not current belief. So the reason why they were quick to blame schizophrenia is schizophrenia affects approximately 1% of the entire global population, which is about 51 million people. So that's nearly enough people to account for all ghost sightings ever. But there are different types of schizophrenia, different forms and different ways that it manifests. And so it's not cut and dry, you're going to see things, you're going to hear things type of thing. But two common manifestations of schizophrenia are audio and visual hallucinations, which might be a ghost sighting. There was a 1994 study that tried to look at schizophrenia as a possible explanation, and what they ended up finding was a small correlation between people who believed in ghosts and people who had schizophrenia. But this was only a correlation in males, and it's important to remember that correlation is not causation. I mean, if it's only a correlation in males, why do some women see ghosts? It's not very solid evidence. In 2014, there were some researchers in Switzerland who wanted to do some studies on people who sensed a presence with them. So they didn't necessarily say ghosts. They said, like, if you felt that someone was in the room with you whenever there's not people, those are the people that they want to talk to. So they did this study with 12 people, which is a really small sample size, so it's hard to determine actually how accurate the study was. They called the thing that they were looking for a feel of presence, which one of the researchers described as being, if the patient was standing, the presence was standing. If the patient was lying down, the patient felt the presence lying down. So not only was this presence in the room with them, but it was also mimicking their behavior. The researchers thought this was due to some sort of doubling in the patient's brain. So there's only one brain, but for some reason it was sensing two bodies. And that ended up being approximately what they found. To do these experiments, they would take a person in a room and put a robot in either side of them. And they would ask the person to touch one of the robots, and then the other robot would touch them, the patient, in the exact same place, doing the exact same motion. So if they like poke them on the shoulder, then a different robot would poke the patient on the shoulder. And doing this, nothing really exciting or interesting happened. But then they put the robot on a delay. So they would touch this other robot on the shoulder, and then the robot that was going to touch them would wait like a second or two. I didn't see the exact time, but it would wait a second and then touch them on the shoulder. And this is whenever the patient started reporting that feel of presence. Once they put the robots on a time delay, the patients would say that they felt a presence in the room with them, that they thought that there was a ghost, and some of them even got so scared that they quit the experiment. Oh, I forgot to mention, all of the patients were blindfolded throughout this, so they couldn't see the robot touching them. So that's important, because if you could see the robot touching you, you would just know it was a robot and not think it was a ghost. The researchers ended up concluding that all of this is due to some miswiring in the parts of your brain that process audio and visual input, as well as your perception of your surroundings. There have also been some issues in the past, even trying to figure out what a ghost is, or if we should cure ghost sightings. So one issue is that different cultures have different words for things. Obviously, there's different languages and there's different cultures around the world who would describe ghosts in different ways. So here in America, we tend to think of ghosts as scary, demonic presences, or like your dead grandma. It's always one or the two. But in some cultures, ghosts are a positive thing. Ghosts are a good thing that interact with you and help you on your way. Maybe they're your ancestors, maybe they're looking out for you. And so if people are getting comfort from these ghost sightings, why would you want to take that away from them? Also, defining ghost sightings as a mental illness causes some issues, considering a lot of people believe in ghost sightings and a lot of people also stigmatize mental illness. So there's a few different issues with getting rid of ghosts. So what do psychologists have to say about ghost sightings? What do they think that's a mental illness? Do they think that there's something wrong with you if you see a ghost? No, they think that there's a few easy explanations for why humans see ghosts. First of all, we're constantly seeking them out. Have you ever been on a ghost tour and then seen a ghost? Like, you were just prepared. Your brain was ready to see a ghost, and so you saw a ghost. Nearly 1/2 of all Americans believe in the supernatural and some sort of ghostly presence, and that just sort of primes our brain to see them where we can. This is sort of supported by the fact that people who already believe in ghosts and already believe in the supernatural are significantly more likely to see a ghost than someone who doesn't believe in them. It also doesn't help that humans are super open to suggestion. Whenever we were evolving and trying to survive out in the wild, if you saw a bush sort of move a little bit, it was a lot safer to assume that that's a lion or a tiger or something dangerous and run away from it than to go, oh, well, it's probably nothing, and then stand there and maybe it was something bad and then it comes and eats you. So we're already primed to, if we think that there might be a danger, to just assume it's a danger and to be afraid and to run away. So we see ghosts where we think that there might be a danger. In the late 1990s, there was actually a study that tried to determine this link and see if actually it was just suggestion. So a researcher took 2 different groups of people on a tour, and to one group, he told them that they were investigating a ghostly presence or a haunting of some sort. And to the other group, he just pretended like it was a normal tour and like nothing was happening. And can you guess which group saw the most ghosts or felt the most presences or weird occurrences? It was the group that was told that they were investigating a haunting. So if you weren't told that you were investigating a haunting, you didn't see it. Now, the argument could be made that if you weren't told that it was a haunting, that you wouldn't be on the lookout for it, so maybe you wouldn't notice all of the odd things. And that's fair. But I personally believe that it's just that we're super open to suggestion. Also, like I said earlier, not everyone sees ghosts as this scary, terrifying thing. For some people, ghosts are a friendly presence, and sometimes our minds can generate them out of trauma. The most common trauma being the death of a loved one. So your grandma passes away, and then a week later you're asleep and you wake up and you see her standing at the foot of your bed. That's your brain coping with 1 second a person was there and then they weren't, and so they're trying to sort of get some of that back. This is also kind of supported by the fact that the majority of ghost sightings are recently passed relatives or recently passed loved ones. So sometimes it's just your brain trying to cope with the bad things that happen to us. There are also some types of seizures that will sort of induce a ghost sighting. So if you have a seizure in your temporal lobe, which is this part of your brain, that's also the part that processes visual memory and spoken language, and sometimes it will cause auditory and visual hallucinations. People who have these types of seizures are more likely to report supernatural experiences. Supernatural experiences are also more likely to be reported between the hours of 2 to 4 a.m., which are also the most common hours for seizures. You're most likely to have a seizure during that time frame. So I'm not saying everyone who's ever seen a ghost has had a seizure, but if you're commonly seeing ghosts between the hours of 2 to 4 a.m., you might want to go to a doctor. And then one of the most interesting things that I found is that there's also some types of waveforms that can make us see ghosts, which blew my mind. So if you don't know, your eyeballs are constantly vibrating at a certain frequency, And apparently there's some stuff that can sort of mess with that frequency. So this was discovered in the 1980s by a man named Vic Tandy, who was working late in his lab, and he all of a sudden felt this grip of panic and like a feeling of impending doom. To calm down, he started pacing around the room, and as he started to pace, he saw this presence out of the corner of his eye, and he swears that he saw this gray being. And then it went away. It all disappeared. The fear went away. Everything was normal again. And he said that his colleagues had tried to warn him that the building was haunted and that they had all had these experiences. And being a scientist, he didn't really believe that, so he went and looked for an explanation of some sort. What he found was that there was a fan in the building that hummed at approximately 18.9 hertz. Which is about the same frequency as your eyes. And so the sound from the fan was sort of hitting their eyes and causing their eyes to vibrate in a way that they don't normally, which their brain then processed as a hallucination. This frequency has also been known to mess with your organs. It can make your organs vibrate at a different rate, which can cause that feeling of panic and some hyperventilation. So this 18.9 hertz has been dubbed the fear frequency, and yeah, it can really mess with you apparently. Now, there have also been scientists who have tried to recreate this feeling of a presence, these ghostly experiences, in a laboratory. And one guy who may or may not have managed to accomplish this is a man named Michael Persinger, who did these experiments in the late 1990s. You may have heard of a thing called the God helmet, and Michael Persinger is the one who designed it. He doesn't like that name because he doesn't believe in God, and that wasn't the purpose of his original experiments, but if a name takes on, then that's the name now. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to a really interesting story written by one of Michael Persinger's patients, so you can read all of this from like a patient's perspective, from someone who experienced these things. But I'm just going to talk about Michael Persinger. He once said, the brain is generating all experiences. The experience of love, the experience of knowing who you are, the sense of presence, the sense of yourself, the feeling that you are real and you're important. These are all products of brain activity in terms of various configurations within different regions in the brain. And that is sort of the common belief today among neuroscientists, that all experiences are due to your brain. I mean, we're interacting with the world around us, but your brain is the one perceiving it and sort of taking it in and interpreting everything that happens to you. But Michael Persinger took it a little bit further than that. He also claimed that all religious and spiritual experiences were due to the brain, which may or may not be true, but is extremely difficult to prove. Like I said earlier, he doesn't really like the name God helmet because that's not what he was looking for. He says that he was looking for how the human brain creates religious experiences, and he was looking at it from more of a creative, artistic perspective, like the creative side of all of us creates these religious and ghostly experiences. He believed that your sense of self and being was located in the left hemisphere, while all religious and creative experiences happen in the right hemisphere. Now, nowadays, we don't really fully believe in the whole left-right brain split situation. Now, if you're interested in me making a video on that, leave a comment below and maybe I will. So Persinger designed this helmet with the help of another scientist to stimulate the temporal lobes, which are around here. They're kind of next to your ears. That's where your temporal lobes are. And the temporal lobe is the part of the brain that processes hearing, speech, and sensory information. So if you mess with the temporal lobes, it's going to mess with those things. He said that he used the helmet to hit the brain with a frequency that is associated with fear. I'm going to assume that's that 18.9 hertz. I couldn't really find the actual frequency that he used, but if he said the fear frequency, and that was called the fear frequency, then I'm going to guess it was that. He figured out that whenever he stimulated the right temporal lobe, the patients would report seeing ghostly apparitions. They would say that they felt a presence in the room, and he said that he even had one patient who got so terrified that they tore off the helmet and ran out of the room. The patients reacted in different ways. There was that guy who got extremely terrified. Some others said that it was a calming presence, and some people just saw it. It was just a very neutral experience. He also said that people's experiences differed with their personal beliefs. So extremely religious Christian people might see God, while some not so religious people saw the ghost of their dead grandma. Some people saw an alien, and some people even saw like a double of themselves. They just thought it was them, but like in a different spot. So this is really awesome, right? So now we know that ghosts and ghostly experiences happen because of some misfiring in your temporal lobe, right? Not really. A lot of scientists have an issue with everything that Persinger did because no one has been able to replicate it. You can buy a God helmet online, but no one, like, you can remake these things and no one has been able to get the same results that he did. So that makes it a little suspicious. Persinger always says that they're persecuting him and that they just don't want science to replace religion, which is valid. Some people might feel that way, but I think if the entire scientific community can't replicate your study, the issue might be you. There were even some researchers who tried to replicate it to see if it was a placebo effect. So they took people and put them in the God helmet, but also put them in a Faraday cage, so there wasn't anything actually happening to their brain. The God helmet wasn't actually stimulating them. And the researchers found that people who believed in the supernatural and believed in ghostly experiences still saw ghosts and still saw supernatural things, while people who didn't believe didn't see anything because the helmet wasn't actually doing anything. So this sort of calls into question all of Persinger's research. It also sort of comes right back around to we're primed to see things. And so if people thought that they were about to see a ghost, they saw a ghost. But if people thought that they weren't, then they didn't. And so I think probably that's the most likely explanation for why we see ghosts. We sometimes want to. I am a huge fan of ghost tours. I obviously am a huge fan of all of October. So yeah, I would love to go on a ghost tour and see a ghost, but I think that would be because I'm trying to see a ghost, not because there actually is one. So let me know in the comments down below what you think, if you believe in ghosts, if you believe that maybe you've seen one, maybe you don't believe it and you have your own theory as to why we see ghosts. I'd love to hear them. Like always, I'll link all of my sources in the description below, as well as that story from the perspective of one of Persinger's patients. If you liked this video and you want to hear more from me, be sure to subscribe and follow me on my social medias. I'll list them all here. You can also email me at askaneuroresearcher@gmail.com and ask me anything that you want, and I'll try my best to answer it. And with all of that, I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.